one of the great writer, producers, and directors of all time, responsible for some of the funniest TV shows and movies of the last 50 years, is here with us. So let's take a look at his work.
I've asked you this many times.
You've asked me a lot of junk.
Yes.
Give me a good handshake. Good one. That's the way I like to feel a good handshake.
You were born in Darling Falls, Montana. Darling Falls, Montana, June 12, 1922. Is that right, Al?
Mr. Hiker, you've written this remarkable book on taxes entitled The Agony and the Ecstasy.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that a strange title since Mr. Irving Stone has used that title for his book on Michelangelo? Ellis?
There she is. There's the little lady who put you out of business.
Your book's going to be a television series?
It's true. Of course, I won't do it until after my series is defunct, which may never be.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno. But she still got bad breath, but he don't care.
This is the kind of music that tells me to go out there and be somebody.
Our body. It's my body. I'm not sharing my body with anyone.
Everybody's going to be real disappointed.
Where are we going? God damn, your drunk tests are hard. Catalina, Magdalena, Lupitana, what's her name?
You're the elevator killer. Merv Griffin.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I've always just loved to kill. I've really enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a man who has given me more pleasure than almost anyone other than my wife, one of the comedy icons of the last 50 years, Carl Reiner. So good to have you. Let me just do this. I'm so happy to have you here, sir.
Bless you, my
Bless me.
son.
Thank you.
Let me touch your hair. That's real hair.
Good stuff, right?
I have that in boxes at home.
Yeah, I saw that. You were on the vanguard of the bald thing.
Well, you know, the thing about baldness is that there was a guy named Fred McMurray who wore a toupee, and I never wore a toupee.
That was a toupe?
Yeah, and I never wore a toupee walking around the street. And he said, how do you decide when to wear it? I said, well, if I put on a tuxedo and I want to be well-dressed and a little handsomer than I am, I wear a toupee. But every time I wore it on the Carson show or any of the shows I always told the audience, you know, this is a toupee. I didn't want to fool them, just want to look good, that's all. I never lied about it.
Now, you have been on a tear. You have been on a writing tear. This is just the last 2 years.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah, you've written 3 volumes of your memoirs.
Right.
I Remember Me. I Just Remembered. And What I Forgot to Remember.
Right.
So,
by the way, I'm so proud of this for a different reason. First of all, this book has 230 pictures in it. So people who don't like to read as much as they like to look at pictures, this is their book. Anyway, no, the pictures are filling. But this picture, this photo, I am so proud of. My wife, who passed away a few years ago, we were married for 65 years, but we met and married while I was in the Army, and she came to visit me in Camp Crowder, Missouri, and painted this watercolor portrait of me. Now, if you know anything about paintings, watercolors is not the medium for portraits. Yeah. You make a mistake, you can't repair it. You have to throw it out. One sitting, about an hour and a half. I don't know if you got to take a close to that. That's what I looked like then. This is the way I look now.
The same. For those of you who don't know, his wife Estelle, along with being a fantastic singer, she's the lady in the famous orgasm scene in When Harry Met Sally. She says, "I'll have what she's having." Yeah. So, in all of these books, why so prolific? Why are you on this tear? Is there a reason?
I don't know. They're in at this age. I'm at 80. No.
93, sir.
93 in
yeah.
In 2 months. There's very little I can do, but I do love the computer and I do love to write. When I learned that I could write, I didn't know I was a writer until one day I wrote a short story in the basement of my apartment in our house in New Rochelle. I brought it to my wife. And I was a teletype operator in the Army. I wanted to see if I could still type. She said, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "I wrote it." She said, "You wrote this?" She was laughing. So I wrote 13 of them. I wrote 13 short stories. I gave it to a gentleman who gave it to another gentleman who asked me if I'd have lunch with him. My friend was a textile manufacturer, and this guy was in pocketbooks. I think he bought textiles for the pocketbooks. No, he was Simon & Schuster pocketbooks. And he's the one who said to me, "Short stories don't sell, but novels do." And I said to my wife, "I can't write a novel. I don't have enough words. I went to college at Georgetown for 1 year. I don't have enough." She says, "You may not have enough words, but you have feelings." And with that, I started to write Enter Laughing, my first novel.
Well, there's some amazing stories in here. I mean, there's stories about Billie Holiday and Frank Sinatra and the Rosenbergs. Do you have a favorite story in What I Forgot to Remember?
Let me see. I'll look at the chapters. They're all my favorite stories. Oh my God.
Carol Burnett. There's good pictures. You got to get the pictures. Well, while you're looking at that, you know, I noticed that the foreword was written by Bill Maher.
Yes.
And the foreword over here was written by Jerry Seinfeld, and this one by Billy Crystal.
Right.
Obviously, they all idolize you as a comedy icon. What do you feel about the current comedy scene? Do you like it? Do you think it's...
Well, there are some. There always will be the commentators. The one who the comedians who commentate on what's going on, they're funny. I mean, Louis C.K. is funny, and God bless Billy Crystal and Josh Gad. They got this new program.
Yeah.
It is wonderful. I tweet that so people will watch it. No, Billy Crystal is a phenomenon. He did a show called 700 Sundays. He did it for years. It's the most brilliant piece of one-man showmanship I've ever seen.
Now, you mentioned Twitter, and it got a laugh, but actually, you are incredibly active on the Twitters.
I love Twittering.
What do you love about the platform?
You're talking to people. I can't go anyplace anymore. I walk around a block. That's about it. Can't get in a plane anymore because most of the cities you come to, my bed isn't there. My bed is on Rodeo Drive, and so I'm a stick in the mud. I have one good friend, Mel Brooks, who comes over every night. We watch television.
Mel who?
Mel Brooks.
I've heard of that fellow. Yeah.
Short Jewish man.
Yeah.
Yes. The 2,000-year-old man. That was an interesting story. I met Mel when he was about 21 years old. I was about 25. He was a friend of Sid Caesar's, not working on the show. And he came to visit once. And the first day I was there, this man stands up and he starts to say he was a pirate, a Jewish pirate. And I'll never forget the first lines. He says, "You know," he says, "I can't set sail anymore. I can't afford to set sail." He says, "You know what they're charging for sailcloth? $4 a yard. I can't afford to pillage and rape anymore." The first words I heard from him. And then,
those first words out of Mel Brooks' mouth.
Yes. And the following day I came in, there was a program called We the People Speak. And I said, "That's a good program to satirize." And I said to Mel, "Here's a man who was actually at the scene of the crucifixion 2,000 years ago. Is that true, sir?" And he went, "Oh, boy." I says, "You knew Jesus?" He says, "Thin lad, all right?" He walked around with 12 other guys, sandals they wore. He says, they came into the store all the time, asked for water. I gave it to them. They were nice guys, never bought anything. That was the first line.
That was the beginning of it.
And then for the next 10 years, at parties, when it was dull anywhere, we'd get up and do it. And it took 10 years to get it on record.
And then it blew up.
Yes, it blew.
Now, you also recently tweeted, it blew up.
Up.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that has a new meaning now.
Yes,
right. But now, you tweeted about Tina Fey.
Yes.
When she was on Letterman, you said, "Last night on the Letterman show, Tina Fey was beautiful and brilliant as always."
Yes.
Tell us about your love of Tina Fey.
Well, the first time I saw her was she was on Saturday Night Live, and she did an impersonation of Miss Palin. And I fell over. It was so accurate. She has two things, as I said. She's brilliant and beautiful.
Yeah.
And she was on, what was she on lately? Well,
she did 30 Rock, right? Which I think owes a huge debt to the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Well, that is a good show, by the way. But no, she just retired her.
Oh, she was on Letterman and took off her dress? Yeah, stripped down.
She retired.
Yes.
And she's still sexy.
You know, it's interesting. Do you think it's strange that here in 2015 we're still having a conversation, women being funny? Do you know there's still this question about it?
Well, you know, it's funny. I was married to a woman who was funny. She wasn't a comedian. She was the most gifted person I know. I say about her that Estelle raised 3 great kids and 1 great husband. I was 7 or 8 years younger than she was when we met. We married 65 years later. Everything I know, but she was always funny. She always the bottom. When she said, "I'll have what she's having," there was one time when my daughter was 16, and Robbie, who was 2 years older, her brother, he was saying, "What do you want for your birthday?" Oh, we were saying, "What do you want?" And he said, "Why don't you get a nose job like your friends are?" They all had little bumps on their noses. And I said, "Wait a minute, Rob." I says, "Her mother has a bigger nose than that, and look at the handsome guy she got." And my wife says, "Yes, it's not the size of your nose that counts, it's what's in it." And it's funny, I was doing The Jerk with Steve Martin at the time. I told him out, he laughed hysterically. 10 years later, he calls Estelle, and he says, "Estelle, you know that line you said about the nose? I'm doing Cyrano, I'd like to use it." And in Cyrano, you see Steve Martin say, "It's not the nose that counts, it's what's in it." And
fantastic. You know, looking at that compilation at the beginning, you've been involved in so many great things. I hope you don't mind if we touch on a few.
No, touch.
Obviously, the touchstone, the talisman, maybe one of the great television shows ever, The Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yes. Now, this is one of the best things that can happen as to get a question like that, because I left here, closed my computer, I'm on page 52 of a book that is called The Who, Here, What, and How the Dick Van Dyke Show Came to Be. It's going to be
everything that Carl Reiner knows about the Dick Van Dyke Show.
About everything that's ever happened on the show. And every time I look at the 158 chapters, I say, "Oh my God, what happened there, what happened there, what happened with Mary 4 or 5 times." I mean, it's my labor of love right now.
What's interesting about the show, so it's in some ways very inside show busy, right? It takes place on a show like your show of shows, and yet it stood the test of time. What about it do you think has spoken to so many generations?
I know exactly what it was. I wrote about the one thing I knew about my wife and I, our relationship, and our relationship to our kids and the world. And we wrote about that. And if you talk about yourself and you're honest about it, most people say, "That's just like me." And another thing I did was I was very careful about that. When other writers came in, I said, "Don't use," I knew we had something special. I said, "I have a feeling this show is going to be around." I knew it. I said, "So let's not use any slang of the day. No, a gun is a gun, not a gat." The words of the day were, the slang words were from the picture of, or McMinnville, or they had a lot of.
They didn't last.
No, it didn't last.
Yeah, because I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, no, but
McMinnville.
Yeah. From the story about the same name, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
But and if you watch the Van Dyke Show, there's no slang in it. And another thing, people haven't changed that much. I decided to do shows about 2 people who were meant to be together and wanted to be together. They were not 2 against each other. They were 2 against the world. I used Lucy, who was probably the best comedian ever lived, but her show was about 2 people who shouldn't have been together.
Right. They're always fighting.
Yeah.
Now, you also have another thing that you are the only man.
Yes.
Who ever.
I can't wait to hear this.
Leave that hanging, right? The suspense.
Yes.
Who has been on every incarnation of The Tonight Show.
That's right.
Steve Allen to Jack Barr to Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, Jimmy Fallon.
Yes. I was on Carson. There was another show with the Jerry Lester show, even before that. But on the Carson show, I was on 47 times, and it was last week. He invited me to come and say goodbye. And I said, "Johnny, you got to do me a favor." I said, in my resume, I want to be able to say I was on 50 times. 47 is. So I said, "Would you introduce me 3 times?" And he did. I walked out. He gave me that intro. I had 1. I walked out. I turned my jacket inside out. And he's here. And I sat down, cut. I walked out again. I came with the jacket over my shoulder. So I got 50 shots.
50 shots.
Yeah.
So There's been a lot of upheaval in late night this year, obviously, with the retirements.
Yeah.
What do you think of the current state? You know, it seems to have taken a turn towards the silly.
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy Fallon is, cracking eggs on his head or doing lip sync battles.
Yes, yes.
It's not kind of the banter from the Jack Parr days. Are you a fan of the current state of late night?
You know, the funny thing is I am. First of all, Jimmy Fallon, I think, is an amazing talent. He sings, he does everything, and he takes chances. He's not afraid. Kimmel, same thing. But the guy I really am, who's sort of making that kind of a show a different show, is James Corden, the Englishman.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable. Yeah. He sings, he dances. He was on a runway with models. He was sensational.
Yeah.
He is very graceful, and he sings beautifully.
We saw him on Broadway in, One Man, Two Governors.
I didn't know that.
Really, really, really funny.
Yeah.
What about, we had this final victory tour, the goodbye tour for David Letterman. Were you a Letterman acolyte? Or?
Oh, I always watched him. I thought Letterman filled in a place that nobody was filling in. He was the things that the people are now missing him, because that truth that he had was a strange. And by the way, I'll never forget him. He made one of the most brilliant speeches, or not a speech, but a lecture about 9/11.
Yeah, when he came
that
back.
was the extent of intelligence in his brain. By the way, I look for Colbert coming back to do the Letterman show. I heard Colbert what's his first name? Stephen Colbert, doing an interview about his wife and his kids. I said, this is the dearest human being I've ever heard. Yeah. And I can't wait to see. He's not going to be the crazy, foolish person he was there, but I can't wait to see that.
Well, you have a reputation as being one of the nice comedians. You're a happy comedian.
Yes.
You're not like this angst-filled, unhappy guy.
No.
Colbert seems to be the same way.
Yes, he is.
Now, you also a tweet about politics.
Yes.
I noticed this one. Let's show this tweet that you put up not that long ago. At 93, you're hoping to be around for the next national election so that you can cast your vote for our first woman president. So,
look, read that.
Something that you prophesized 3 years ago.
Yes, in one of these books.
One of the books, we could find it.
You find it.
But I think you're actually, talking about Carly Fiorina, right?
No.
Not Carly Fiorina?
No. This is very interesting. I think it's that book.
Yeah.
In this book, I talk about a family, a particular family, and what happens in the world after that, what the family does in that world. And the year 20 so-and-so, 30, the year 20, what is it, 1987?
Right.
Carla Forino, Eva Longoria, Sanchez Bassett becomes the second woman president.
Right.
And a nice little asterisk, the first woman president is Hillary Clinton. And this was 3-4 years ago.
Right.
I sent it to Hillary, and she said, if this happens, you'll get the first dance at the ball. Now, the interesting thing, I put a picture in the book. I found a picture of Hillary Clinton shaking hands with Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton is there, and I said, the incoming president saying goodbye to the outgoing president while the first man looks on.
And that's what you predicted 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
So not only are you a great tweeter, a great writer, a great writer, you're prescient.
Yes.
You're the You're the Jewish Nostradamus.
Yes. Well, actually, Mel is, but I learned from him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Reiner. You can get all of Carl's books at randomcontent.com, where Carl will personally personalize your book. Hey, thanks for watching.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click here for more videos.
And make sure to catch new episodes Friday at 9 p.m. on HuffingtonPost.com.